I'll tell you about. Hey, what's up, Laser fans? Welcome to We Have a Take, the What podcast. I am Tara Bowen Biggs, joined as always by Rose Harding. Hello, Rose.
Hello, Tara. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I didn't tell you that I was going to start recording, so surprise, we're
Surprise,
recording.
I'm here. It's fine. We're good.
We made it. We made it. We got to go to a game together this week.
I know that was really exciting. Thank you for inviting me.
We had a good time. We had two of our multiple time guests with us as well. We had Kat and Bruce. All the games, the last several have sort of just all run together for me. Like I can't remember who they played when. I know that the what the outcomes were. There's a lot. I had a lot of Blazer this week because I had Monday night. I had the season ticket holder event, and then the game on Tuesday and Thursday and Saturday. So
Oh
lots of
my.
Blazers.
Quite the homestand for you.
Yeah, it was. Monday night it was the Rip City United season ticket holder event. It was at OMSI. It was pretty fun. Last year it was at the Moda Center, and so there was just like a lot of like running around trying to find something going on, and like OMSI was a little bit more. First of all, have you seen the OMSI exhibit with like the animals?
No.
It's super cool. I highly recommend just going to OMSI to see the exhibit. It's like an Oregon guy, and he takes like animal, for lack of a better word, I guess it's carcasses, but they like are preserved and they look really new, but they're not taxidermy. I don't know. But
Is it like
especially,
that is it like that human exhibit where they like put up real human bodies with like muscles on them and stuff?
well, no, because it's more like he takes he makes beautiful designs out of the bodies. So like there'll be like a full like picture of like beetles of all different colors, like going from one color
Oh.
gradient to another. Or he has these really cool ones where there's like some kind of like maybe they're like little mini squid or octopi or whatever, and they're laid out so that their tentacles are like all going in the same direction in like a really cool pattern. It's
Oh.
super fascinating. And so the Blazers were like plopped among these these different areas. So one of them, the first station that we got to go to, they have like they set up stations where you can like go meet a player and have a picture taken or whatever. So the first station was there was this I think it was some kind of a crane, this beautiful feathered white a bird with a huge wingspan. And so they
Oh.
had
To
that's
the chest to
right. So
the
we got
wingspan.
to, so we the guests got, or the season ticket, we got to stand there, and then like I had Scoot and Wop measure my wingspan.
I bet it was highly impressive.
Yes. Oh yeah. I was like, be sure to add an inch or two, and they were like, yeah, we got you. Um, but yeah, it was fun because it's always I find it's fun when the players are like engaged in other activities, so they're not like so much like the focus of like just a giant line of people. And there were
Right.
definitely stations that were like lines of people, but like Matisse was playing Connect Four and Jenga, and
Hmm.
Shaedon was playing ping pong, and there were different things like that. And I only had a little bit of time that I could stay, so I saw as much as I could in the short time. Tumani is so engaging. I
Well,
thought
he's
that
my favorite. He's the best one. So
I
yes,
just thought that
I have no doubt.
right. Well, I just thought he would be a little bit more reserved, but he just like blah, 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 blah. Like the people in front of me, like went up to like get their picture taken and took the opportunity to have a very long conversation with him. And he was just like fully engaged. He was like into it. So yeah, that was really fun. I saw DeAndre, and then Donovan Clingan was like they were giving out like free these like a gift bag or whatever. And so Donovan Clingan was like handing out the gift bags. And he is huge. He
Yeah,
I mean, we all know this, but oh my God, he's huge.
yeah. He's yes, yes. Well, I love that you got to like see him up close and personal though, because like we all see that he's huge, but
Hmm.
sometimes it's hard to appreciate how huge people are.
Yeah.
Um, so Audra has been really interested in like how tall players are
Mhm.
because she realized, Scoot looks tiny on TV, but I was like explaining to her like, oh, Dad's friend Matt is the same size as Scoot. And she was like, "What?" Because Matt's huge.
Yeah.
And so then she's been having Tyler like pull up the measuring tape to show her how tall different players are.
Yeah.
And when you pull up the measuring tape and tell her how tall Donovan Clingan is, it's like he wouldn't fit in our house.
Yeah. We actually have in our kitchen on the wall between our kitchen and the dining room, when my son was young, he was super into how tall the Blazers were. So he wrote, we still have like the heights of like
Oh,
Greg Oden and Joel Prisbilla
that's really cute.
in our
Like
kitchen.
most people, like I have like, in like Audra's door frame, I have like little marks from where like as she's been
Yeah.
growing, and then it'd be really funny to just add like Joel Prisbilla
Yeah.
on
You could
top
just
of
put
that.
Scoot on there so she could just see like how tall that is.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's so funny because he does. He looks tiny because he's around all giant guys. But then if you saw him in real life, you'd be like, oh, he's actually huge. Because he's
Yeah,
like, I think he's like 6'3". He's listed as 6'3" anyway.
at least. Um, well, and so like the game on Tuesday night, they seemed less engaged. I think they were Monday, the season ticket holder event has got to be one of probably the least favorite things that the players have to do. I gotta think that, they put on a great face or whatever, but it was, at the end of their road trip, then they have to come and do this and play the next night. And I'm not putting up any excuses. I don't think that they lost on Tuesday because of this. But I just a comment that must be a really hard thing because you have to get up for it. You don't want to like, not act, engaging with the fans, but
Hmm.
that's got to take a lot out of you, especially if you're just like not maybe a naturally outgoing person either. So, and then Thursday, I don't know what the excuse was there.
Yeah, I'll say like I had fun going to the game with you on Thursday because it was just nice to see you and everybody else. But it was not the most riveting basketball that I have seen, and it's like one of the few times in which I left early, but I made like a business decision and I was like, well, if I get home early, if I leave now, I can read to my daughter before bed and say good night, and I do have work the next day, so
It was
regrettably.
totally understandable, and we gave ourselves permission this year, like.
Mhm.
Um, and we had a lovely group. We that was a lovely group of people on Thursday night. And last night, also a lovely group of people. But I didn't get to go with you. But it was, I don't know. As far as just like speaking to the Blazers play recently, I'm holding on to Scoot continues to a lot of the time look like the best player on the floor. I don't know what's
Yeah.
going on with Anthony, but Scoot stays engaged. He doesn't give up. He hustles, and I'm hanging on to that. And anytime it's the young guys playing, it's more interesting to me than when they're running out the vets.
Totally. And also, like, I will say, like, one of the things that I was really impressed with about Scoot is that, like, when a lot of guys looked flat-footed because they were like, let's just get it over with, Scoot was
Mhm.
trying.
Yeah.
And I wonder, like, you've talked about, like, oh, like, what does winning in the past mean for somebody? And I was like, but also, what does it mean for a guy to be on a team like the G League Ignite and still stay hungry and after it every game? Like maybe he has this level of resilience that he's built for himself where he can just power through and forget a loss and move on and try really hard the next game. Because, like, that's what they had to do on the Ignite. Like, they
Yeah.
weren't a particularly good team, but they still had to stay hungry and, like, show what they can do.
I don't think they actually had to.
Well, I
But the
mean,
fact that Scoot has is the important thing here.
yes, and also like, he might not have been considered such a high draft prospect the year that he came out if he hadn't been able to do that game after game.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, could be.
So I asked Blue Sky for questions today, which is like I always think I should do that and then I never remember to do it, but I remembered today like an hour before and I was like, I'm just gonna do it and see if we have any. We got
Sweet.
some questions. So
Yay.
I brought some questions for us. So the first question is from Linssenp, who I actually met on Thursday.
Oh,
Uh,
awesome.
yeah, so friend of the podcast, Peter.
Hello,
Uh,
Peter.
he- hello, Peter. He asked us, what is going to happen at the trade deadline?
Well, in general, some players are going to get traded. Some people are going to be happy with the trades. Some people are not. Some people are going to be happy that trades were made. Some people are not going to be happy that trades were made. And I don't know if the Blazers are going to fall into any of those categories.
A bunch of people are going to do nothing. I think that's the one thing that I've realized, and as I've been hearing people talk about navigating how trades work now, I think a lot of teams will end up doing nothing.
Yeah.
That's that's my general feeling. A lot of teams will do nothing, and a lot of people will not understand why their team did nothing. But I will also just in full, um, just like fully putting it out there. I don't know a lot of the rules that make trades tricky now. I just know that in general, when I see articles written about this, trades are hard to
Mhm.
do now, depending on the types of contracts we're talking about and how much money's left on them and yada yada. Like I don't know all the nuances, but I know that even front offices are saying that it's trickier now. And so that if they're still trying to figure it out and it's tricky for them, I'm like, a lot of trades are probably not going to happen. Because it's like, think about those kinds of trades they used to like pull off with like four teams. And I'm like, if they can't even figure out like straight two team trades, it's like, do they like understand the rules well enough to pull off those crazy trades that involve like five teams and some guy being moved to like five different teams and then being waived at the end? Like, I don't even know.
I'm interested to see like what some of the teams that think they're contenders are going to do, like the Warriors. Um
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
and whether or not the Blazers are going to be part of anybody's plan. Because like every time a trade is made, it's like, oh, could have been Anthony Simons, but it wasn't. Oh, could have been DeAndre Ayton, but it wasn't. So it's like, I what do I want to happen at the trade deadline for the Blazers? I would love for them to move on for their from their veterans. What do I think is going to happen? I have no idea, but whatever it is, I'm not going to see it coming. That's kind of how I've just decided to live with it. Is like I don't know what's going to happen, but whatever happens, I'm not going to be able to predict it.
Yeah. And like a lot of the big trades that go down are usually trades that nobody knew was even like possible. Like a lot of the times, like the big trades that you'll see, like involve a player that people didn't even think of as available. No one was talking about them. The players that people talk about over and over and over and over again, like a lot of times they never go anywhere. But then, like we like last year we made that trade for Denny Avdia, and like nobody even knew that Denny Avdia was available,
hmm
and suddenly he was traded. Like I
hmm
think that the assumption was that he wasn't because he just signed like a new contract and he was playing well in Washington or whatever, and he was young and they were trying to rebuild and they traded him away. Like you just don't know like who's available, who's not, who's like which team is asking too much for somebody. Miami. Um, it's just like, will Jimmy Butler even get traded? I don't know.
I
Oh
don't.
my gosh, though, it would be crazy if he wasn't.
Yeah, and then what's he gonna do? It's one of those things that I have so little control over that I just like, I mean, there are ongoing conversations around just what the Blazers are gonna do at the trade deadline that have been going on for weeks and weeks,
Months
months.
since the beginning of the season.
And we don't know any more today than we did 3 months ago or whatever. So I just prefer to wait and see what happens. But I'm glad you brought up Tumani because, or not Tumani, Denny. I want to
Hmm.
pivot for just a second because that was one thing that you and I talked about at the game
Mm,
was how we felt that the Blazers were really missing Denny.
yes. Yes, for sure. And you could see it. Like the pace of play is different, the aggression is different. I also made that comment too. I was like, I think that Tumani plays better with Denny. They have like pretty good chemistry. And like one of the things that I think a lot of people have noticed, like not just us, but like their switchability
Mhm.
gives them a lot of leeway on defense. That's a luxury to just have Denny and Tumani that can both switch onto anybody. And they like sometimes they let those switches go real easy. Like they give them up all the time. It doesn't matter. Like And now when it's just Tumani without Denny, he doesn't get to do that.
Yeah.
Like,
Those two are very connected when they play. And so being able to do those things, like they don't even, I mean, they communicate about it, but it's like they know what each other's doing. They've done it enough that it feels like they know what each other's going to be doing.
yeah, and I noticed like when in the game that we were at together, I mean, Tumani switches with other people too, but it's not with the same level of confidence that he does it with
Mhm.
Denny. He and Denny do it very seamlessly together. And some of the switches, like some of them were blown, some of them were like late, it's just not the same chemistry. And so I think that Tumani is a better player when he plays alongside Denny, especially on defense.
And remember when we were like, oh my God, why is Tumani dribbling so much? And then we put it together. We were like, oh, Denny usually handles the ball a lot more.
Hmm.
And there was somebody else at the end of the game that seemed like he was really well. We were trying to figure out what's going on with DeAndre Ayton, and we were like, maybe he misses Tumani, but that's a whole nother story.
Yeah, he did. He looked lost a little bit, lost in a way where I think you were probably right. Like you said to me, you're like, I wonder if he's being asked to do something differently and he's not comfortable with it yet. And honestly, missing Denny might be a thing for him too. Like it might not be as apparent as like that like immediate like direct chemistry with like that Tumani and Denny have, but like he might be asked to fill some of that role because we do know that Denny does guard a lot of fives. You
Hmm.
know, he does take a lot of those like defensive assignments on like tough centers. Um, and that was also another luxury because he's huge. Like, you know, he's 6'9", and he could take a lot of those tough defensive assignments that maybe DeAndre Ayton doesn't have to do. And I don't know, I saw him wandering like a lot on defense.
Ayton, yeah, it was just so bizarre because for weeks he played perfectly serviceable basketball. It was fine. It was fine.
Mhm.
It wasn't the best, but it wasn't what we're seeing now. And then all of a sudden he's just like, yeah, like you said, just like wandering. And yeah, that was the only explanation that I could come up with because I don't like this whole, oh, his spirit wasn't right thing. Like,
No.
no, with him, I really think that maybe they've had to adjust, like you said, maybe because of, absence of Denny, and he's just like it just hasn't clicked for him yet.
Yeah, he's like I could see him like trying to decide like he's like drifting toward the paint, then he drift back to
Mhm.
to like more like the 3-point line, and I'm like, who are you guarding? You're not
Yeah,
guarding anybody.
it looked like he had like no. I don't want to say no idea because that's not respectful to all the work that he's put in, but it really looked like he was a little bit lost on defense.
Yeah. So I hope that like that's just what we're seeing with him, and this is a small bump with him playing without Denny, and that when Denny's back, he'll look like his old self. But it was just really interesting to see like all of the ways in which some of that chemistry was broken and how much the team suffered with him not on the floor. And like he's like transitioned into more of an on-ball guy for like not the whole game, but for sections of the game. And
Yeah.
he really put a lot of pressure offensively on, opposing teams. And I didn't see like as much of that in some of those kind of like shifts where it wasn't like Ant or Scoot on ball. Scoot really picked up the aggression. He looks very comfortable now, and I can't even believe that like we've arrived at his like pull-up threes. I like didn't know if that would ever come, and like now he looks super comfortable
Yeah.
pulling up from three.
Yeah. His shooting's gotten so much better, and yeah, it's been really nice to see.
Yeah. So anyway, trade deadline. That was our first question. I will
We
move us on.
successfully deflected our first question. What's the second question that we can
Yeah,
deflect?
let's see if we can get out of this one too. Okay, Jason, longtime friend of the podcast, Jason Hecubus. What is the number one thing you want to be able to say definitively about the team by the end of the season?
Do you have one?
Um, no, I mean not really. I thought I had one at the beginning of the season, but it's changed.
I have one right now.
Okay, great.
I want to know at the end of the season, that Scoot can run an offense.
I love that. I
And
feel like we're seeing that
I
like
think he's
right
getting
now.
there. I think he's getting there. I think maybe cutting down on unforced turnovers. I say this a lot. Turnovers don't bother me that much if they're in service of trying to do something. It's the
Hmm.
unforced turnovers. So if he's
Getting your
making
pocket
turnovers because
picked.
he's trying to make dramatic plays, that's one thing. I just don't want him making uh unforced turnovers, but he's playing with confidence, and if he can keep that up, and if we can see, like we just said, his shooting is getting better, and if we can see, like, if his shooting does like decline, because it will, because that's just how things go, they go up and down, and if we can see him still contributing on offense, even if his shot isn't going in, that's what I mean by that. Like, that's what I want to see. I want
Yeah.
confident that Scoot can run an offense.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great thing to want to see at the end of the season. Also, like one of the things that I was thinking about when I watched him get his pocket picked once this week, and like the first thing that I like jumped out at me is was not like, oh, that sucked. Was like those are some of the last things that I think that guys pick up in the NBA is how to like ball security
Hmm.
from because like the NBA has a lot of crafty guys that'll like they'll do cute stuff to pick your pocket.
Yeah.
And I think that the only way to like, you know, build your skill set to protect against that is reps.
Hmm.
And Scoot's been not been on the ball as much as I thought he would be. Like even when he does play, they play him off ball like quite a bit. Um, and so like I just think that he needs more time on ball. Like I want to see him on the floor for more than 20 minutes a game, and I want to see him with the ball in his hands.
Hmm.
Because those are the kinds of like that to me, that's the kind of experience that he needs in order to protect against unforced crappy turnovers.
Hmm. Well, and we were just talking about how his ability to like stay focused or stay enthused throughout the entire game. I'm not sure we're totally there on focus yet, but he can
Hmm.
definitely stay engaged in the game the whole time. And like that's what you need out of whoever is going to run your offense. And sidebar, have you noticed that at this point in the season they are not getting the ball stolen from behind nearly as much? Remember how that was just like an epidemic at the beginning of the season? It was just like, oh, here comes somebody from, and I was just like, behind you. And
Hmm.
that has dropped way off. And I don't know if people have just started doing it less or if they've actually figured out how to handle that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I have noticed that too. I also just think that like these guys are communicating better, and so I know that a lot of the times like you prevent those kinds of like those
Hmm.
steals by talking and
Hmm.
letting guys be aware of like who's behind them.
Hmm.
Like same with like like back screens, like like with never usually the person who's being screen's fault. It's his teammates for not making him aware that a back screen is coming, kind of a thing. And so like that communication maybe helping them as well, just because they've had to learn how to play together in these in new lineups and with new guys.
We've seen a lot of different lineups lately, you know,
Yes.
partly because probably in a lot of reasons because of injury, but whatever the reason, I'm glad to see them.
Yeah, same. Um, the one thing I will say that I would like to see by definitively about the team by the end of the season is I would like to see what looks like the start of a consistent starting lineup. I mean, I don't necessarily think that they necessarily have everybody there, but like I don't know who would the starting center would be on this team.
Hmm.
I don't know who's the starting power forward on this team because they've oscillated a little bit between Denny and Jeremy, and I'm like, can you make it a little more clear to us, like which of these is the thing? Like, I think we all agree that it's probably not going to be Jeremy going forward. Like, everyone talks about how he's probably going to be traded at some point. I don't know if that's like exactly what's on people, like what that's the front office is thinking, but I do know that Denny plays really well in that starting lineup, and it would make sense that that would be like maybe the hope long term. But like, it hasn't been clear to me that like the front office knows anything either. And like, if we're going to be in year 2.5 of a rebuild, by the end of 2.5 years, I would like to know which of these guys are likely to going to be starting on this team longer term and which of these guys are not.
Right. So that basically translates to movement at the trade deadline.
Or not, or benching
Or
guys, like I
benching.
guess benching
Yeah.
guys, because like they've been playing like Ant and Jeremy and guys that we have and Aiton guys that people think are not here long term. Like those are guys that
And they
play
haven't
big
been
minutes.
playing very well. They could be. Yeah.
No. And I'm like, like, I don't know why, but I just know that like it's not clear to me that they've even like decided like we're gonna see what these guys can do. This
Hmm.
is gonna be like what we're working toward for the time being. I don't know. Their best looks to me have been when the young guys have been playing, if I'm being totally honest. That's when
Oh
I'm
yeah,
most engaged.
that's the most watchable.
Yeah, totally. Okay, next question. We didn't totally deflect that one, but we did a little bit. Sorry, Jason. The next question, 20,000 Thorns asks, on a scale of 1 to 10, how strongly do you believe that Scoot and Shaedon are the long-term answer for the Blazers?
Very low on that scale. I mean,
How
not because I
strong?
don't like them.
Yeah.
I think they're lovely, lovely humans. They're good ball players. They've shown flashes, but we have no idea what the front office is doing. And if they are in the lottery for 3 more years, so my confidence is very low. I don't know, two?
I'll
Not
go
because I
with
don't like them, but just
yeah,
because I
yeah.
have no idea what they're doing.
I'll go with like 4. Here's why I'll say 4. Because I don't think that they're not.
Hmm.
I don't think that they're not, and I do think that if that it there's a good chance that at least one of those guys is part of the long-term future of a good like on a good team. But they're so young. This is the other they're so young and like the idea that you can be definitively like confident in anything with guys this young that have been playing on a team this bad, like I don't know, like but I think that they both could get there. I'll say I don't like I don't look at either of them and be like absolutely not. Um but I'll say like we've only ever seen them under one coach.
Hmm. And
And
also, yeah,
you just doesn't necessarily doesn't and it's a coach that we all agree is not going to be the answer. He's not the answer. And so until I see them utilized by somebody who we think might be a guy to shepherd this team, I don't know what they could be.
yeah.
I know like a little bit of what they could be because I've seen them play well in some of these scenarios, but like they might be brilliant in another system. I don't know.
I feel like maybe I'll raise mine to a 3.
Okay.
Because I feel that um a lot of um the GM's job is wrapped up in these guys being successful. So as
Hmm.
long as he's the GM, he's really going to be pushing for them to, but I don't, I mean, what do I know? I don't know anything. I have no idea what the plans are. Um but I do know that like Joe Cronin drafted them. They were drafted under him, and so their success
Hmm.
is very critical to his success. I will say, I wonder sometimes because when you said they're still so young, I was like, yes, but this is Shaedon's third year
Hmm.
and Scoot's second year. So I don't know. It's like, is that in NBA terms, is that young? Maybe for guard. I don't know. I don't know when is the cutoff for, because we said Anthony Simons was young and all of a sudden, it's like he's been in the league for 7 years.
Yeah.
So
But I mean,
like,
he didn't even get to play hardly his first couple years
mhm,
because
that's true.
he was
That's a
like
good point.
behind
Yeah.
CJ and Dame.
Yeah.
Um so like Scoot and Shaedon have gotten more playing time
Yeah.
than both of those guys. And I don't know how you feel about Shaedon, but I feel like Shaedon had like at least 1 year that was lost in the NBA.
Oh, last year. Yeah.
Like he at least 1 year where he was like totally lost and not because not I mean not like, just because he was injured.
Hmm.
And so, I just I think that it's easy to feel like they are both young and not young, but
Yeah.
I am also reminded of the fact that like we got CJ and Dame out of college after 4 years. Like
Hmm.
they're both still younger than both of those guys.
Hmm.
And, so if we consider this more like their college experience, like the college years, like, we still got plenty of time to see what they could be.
Yeah.
Um, but I'll just say like in general, like this is probably too in the weeds, but I'll say it anyway. In general, we have seen them play under a single coach who has his idea of what his system is, and we all just are stuck with his perspective on these players.
Yeah.
What if a different coach has a fundamentally different perspective on these players? What if some other coach is like, we think Shaedon's a small forward. We don't think Shaedon's a shooting guard. Like, I don't know, like it could be completely different. They could be completely used in different ways and they could have different strengths under another coach. And just because we haven't seen it doesn't mean that it couldn't exist.
Hmm.
And so I will say, like, you know, cavemen at one point like picked up a rock and here's my tool and turns out that there's so many other things you could do. Like there are just so many other potential uses for these guys that we don't, I mean, maybe they're bad, maybe they're not as good. I don't know, but we haven't seen it. We haven't seen somebody else look at these guys' skill sets and be like, what could I do with you? How could we elevate your game? What could we add to your game?
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I guess I think of the question in terms of like I hadn't even thought about it like having a different coach, but what's the like it in framing the question that we were asked, a new coach coming in might be like, I need a like I want this player and this player and this player, and then the rest of them, you know,
Hmm.
they could decide that they don't want to play a certain way and they want something else. So I just don't have a high confidence that I have any idea what they're doing. I'll just go back to that.
Can I tell you that that thing right there, what you were just talking about, how coaches might want specific types of players? That thing right there is the reason why I think that people are getting a little too eager with the who do we trade and how do we get them off our roster now? Because until like we have a coach now that we don't believe is going to be our coach next year. Do you really want to execute a bunch of trades
Yeah.
for a bunch of assets that maybe don't fit whatever coach you're going to bring in that's going to like supposed to shepherd the vision of this next team? I don't particularly want to do that. I want to know what the meal's going to look like before I go out and buy the ingredients. So
Mhm.
maybe we should just sit on these guys for a little bit longer until we have a vision for what this like a coach with the vision that's going to carry them forward. And so he can get the personnel that he thinks would make this team most successful around the guys he already has and wants to keep.
Totally. 100% agree. And they're not going to know any of that until they know how they're going to do in the draft.
Right.
So
There's like
yeah.
so many other things that are worth seeing fall into place.
Yeah.
Because like what if you trade away all these guys that you consider like trade assets and then you like acquired a bunch of the wrong guys? You gonna turn around and trade them again? Like, I don't know. This is why I'm not a GM and I'm glad I'm not a GM.
Me too. God, that would be awful.
Okay, we have one more question we should get
Okay.
to because this is like probably the best one. This is from Keanu Reeve books. Not Keanu Reeves, Keanu Reeve books. I don't know what that means, but their avatar is Keanu Reeves, and so we can assume it's associated with Keanu Reeves. Okay. Which of the current Portland Trailblazers should be allowed to wield a katana?
Okay, I had to look that up because I have no idea what that
You don't know
means.
what a katana is? Oh, okay.
Well, I looked it up and apparently it's a two-handed sword.
Yes.
So that's why we give it to Kris Murray because he uses two hands.
Well, that is a good reason for you to choose Kris Murray.
I don't know anything about the rest of the story, the of the question. So you give me all the context that I'm missing.
There is no other context. It's just
Oh,
which of the
okay.
Trailblazers should be allowed to wield a katana. I am of the opinion that it should be Jeremy Grant. Jeremy Grant should be able to wield a katana. He would make that thing look great. Also, he would turn it into a very fashionable accessory so much that everybody else is like, oh my gosh, we're so stupid. Why weren't we wielding katanas this whole time?
I could see that too. I think those are both good answers. Good job for us. Yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
And then the second part of this question is alternatively, is it time to move on from Chris's nickname being K Money in favor of Mr. Perfect?
Um, have we? Is there a known nickname for Kris Murray? Is
I don't know. Uh,
I did the research
Basket
on him and I don't remember.
Basketball was trying to make Krispy Kreme happen. Um, which I'm not against.
Yeah.
I see the vision there. And also now that we're doing those donut drops, it's a very good opportunity for some like
Oh,
vertical advertisement.
yes.
Um, I don't know. How do you feel? I mean, I
Well,
know
okay, so
two
I'm gonna
hands.
look at okay, so something that's been going around on social media, um, and shoot, I wish I could remember the first person to post it, but something that's been going around on social media is a list of Blazer players, and it's kind of like for the people who are at the sign making station.
Oh yes, because I think Alex posted that picture,
It's okay,
and
so
that's when we
it's
figured out about Scoot McBooty.
yeah, yeah. So it's some suggestions based on some of folks's nicknames. So I'm looking at it because this has been posted to
I don't think Chris
see.
is on it,
It doesn't look like he is
and it makes me wonder if there's a second page because there's
like the
only
other
like a
side.
handful of players. Yeah.
Yeah. Donovan, Jeremy, Shaedon, Jabari, Scoot, Matisse, Robert, DeAndre, and Coach Chauncey Billups. And Anthony, I can't remember if I said him. Okay, so that's no help for us in terms of Um, Mr. Perfect, that feels like just a little bit too much pressure. Um, but
Maybe also a little early for Mr. Perfect.
yeah. But I kind of get because he's very economical in his approach. Like he doesn't
Mm,
do extra stuff. He's not extra. He does exactly what he needs to do with no more flair, right? He just
yeah.
does the thing. Um, so um, I can see kind of like where Mr. Perfect, but I think we need to wait. I think we need to give it a little bit more time before we call him perfect.
Okay. Chris to me is like I think you're right. He does everything well, but without being too extra. He's like if you he's like getting a really great meal at a food cart,
Yeah.
but you're not paying for like a fine dining experience.
What I mean, what about Mr. Economical?
Mr. Economical. Is
I'd
that
be willing to consider that one.
mm, it just doesn't like roll off my tongue. Mr. Economical.
Mr. Economical.
Great value Murray.
Ooh, great value, Murray. I like that too.
Yeah. He's really I've been really impressed with him the last couple of games. Like he's
Yeah.
obviously getting more minutes,
Yeah.
but like I think his minutes look pretty good.
Yeah.
Like we were
Well,
wondering like when we would see him emerge.
mhm.
He's emerging.
To go back to the Mr. Perfect, I think, part of it is that he doesn't make a ton of mistakes. Um, so that's another thing to consider. And he dunks with two hands, and he will talk about it, for which I am so excited that Connor Bergen wrote that into his story about how he on purpose dunks with two hands. So I love that as a big fan of two-handed anythings.
Two hands for safety is what he said.
Yep, I love it.
I wonder if he's gonna. I'm curious if he's gonna still get minutes once Denny's back, because one of the things that it feels very obvious to me is like he has like the same like he's like this around the same size as
Mhm.
him and can take some of the same defensive assignments. Um, and I'm just curious if they'll like keep him in the lineup. I hope he does. I hope he
I
stays
feel like
getting
he was
minutes.
getting a few, like he was getting like a 6 to 9, and I could be making this completely up off the top of my head, but I feel like he was playing like 6 to 9 minutes, but now he's up to like 20 without Denny.
Mm,
Like I said, I base that on knowing nothing,
just
only on
feelings.
feel. But I do think that the coach has been playing him, just not very much, and we've seen more of him, and it's either because he's earned it or out of necessity, or probably most likely a combination of both.
Yeah. It would be great if he could emerge as like having a consistent role on this team. Like I think the team would be better for it. It would be yeah. I'm a huge Kris Murray believer. He's also another fellow lefty.
Hmm.
So we have like, quite a few lefties
Hmm.
on this team. And I'll always like be all down with lefty. left-handed players. I'm down with every single one of them, even Rodney Hood. Okay.
So another thing that came out at our game that we attended together was we didn't have a lot of charitable things to say about Norman Powell. Like sort of our
No.
true feelings, just like we were in like we were vulnerable because we were
Hmm.
watching our team that we enjoy get really beat by a lot by Norman Powell again. And so our true feelings for Norman Powell kind of came out. And if anybody was around us listening to that and thought that maybe we needed to just stuff it, I apologize. Sorry,
Yeah,
Norman
it's
Powell. Understand the grind.
worst grind motto in the whole NBA, Norman Powell. Yeah, I'm sorry to anybody. I'll say I'm sorry to anybody who's sitting near us, but also like on my left was you, and on the right was a guy who was screaming very loudly.
Yeah.
So I don't think that he even heard me.
If any
But
member of Norman Powell's family was around, I apologize.
sitting in the 300 level,
Yeah.
yes. Norman Powell's family in the 300 level with us.
They understand the grind. You have to start at the 300s before you can come down. You have to earn your way up to the 100 level.
That's right. That's right. So yeah, true feelings about Norman Powell. I definitely put him on Blue Sky too, because I was just feeling very salty about looking at him. Although watching him get blocked into the ground was amazing.
That was good. But what brought Norman Powell up was I never really felt that way about Rodney Hood. I was
Oh
always,
no.
yeah.
And Rodney Hood, like, I don't know, maybe it was like he had, I don't know, he felt really he'd been at the Jazz before, and he brought his family, and his family was a really big part of his identity here. And I don't know.
Well, and his arrival wasn't all mixed up in that whole like we when they traded Gary Trent Jr. away to Toronto, who's like ugh, we could do a whole segment on Toronto, but we're not going to. So Rodney Hood came in with a little bit less baggage in that sense.
I like how hard you hit that second T in Toronto, like it was like an insult. Um, Also just because like if you're from Toronto, like they don't pronounce that second T. It's
Well,
just like
I'm sure Toronto is great.
Toronto.
Uh, it's great. We have players from Toronto on Toronto, sorry, on our very team. We have lots of players from Toronto, so that's great. Uh,
Two.
but yeah, the promises that fans gave us about how Norman Powell, we weren't going to miss Gary Trent Jr. because we were going to have Norman Powell, did not come to fruition.
That's right. That's right. Okay, that's all the questions I have.
That's
But
fun. That
thank
was
you. Yeah,
fun.
thank you to everybody who sent them. And next time if I remember, I'll ask again.
We may never get questions again. They might hate how we answered them and be like, no, we're never.
Oh God. Rose and Tara, why ask them questions?
They do not know how to handle it.
Um, shall we move on?
Yes.
Because so a couple weeks ago, we learned about Denny Avdia because he has a new player in our team this year. And today we're going to learn about Donovan Clingan.
Yes, that is true. So I got to read all about Donovan Clingan. And so, yeah, that's what we're going to do right now. So, as most people know, Donovan Clingan is a 7'3" in socks, like no shoes. He's 7'3", center. He is 20 years old. His birthday's coming up. His birthday is on the 23rd of February. And one thing I didn't know is that he and Scoot are actually super close in age. So Scoot's going to turn 21 on February 3rd. And then Donovan's going to turn 21 on February 23rd. So they're only 20 days apart.
Oh my God. And also, so Scoot just turned 20.
He's
Scoot just
going
turned
to.
21?
He's
Scoot's
going to
going to
be
turn 21.
21
Okay.
on February
Gosh,
3rd.
wild.
Yeah.
They're all
So
like,
as somebody who sat through and has Zach Collins's 21st birthday game burned into my brain, I immediately went and checked the schedule to find out what the Blazers were going to be doing on these guys' birthday to see how it was. Because for those who don't remember, Zach Collins was in Miami on his 21st birthday. And the day after, they played Miami, and he was interviewed, and he looked like he had spent his 21st birthday in Miami. So the Blazers are going to be playing on Scoot's birthday. They're going to be in the middle of a home and home back to back. So I think we're going to be okay on that. They're going to play the Suns and then the Pacers the next day. And then on Donovan's birthday, on the 22nd, they're going to play the Hornets at home, and then they're going to leave for a road trip, and they're going to be traveling to Utah on his 21st birthday. So hopefully we'll be okay.
He might not even get a drink in Utah. Like you might he me yeah. Like I once got stuck overnight in Utah because I missed a connecting flight. And I'll tell you what, the hotel bar that I was at did not serve alcohol.
Oh, after, or was it after hours?
I don't
Oh,
know.
wow.
All I know is that I was there and I was checking in the hotel and I went to the hotel bar and they were like, juice?
um, I love traveling to Utah. I have good friends there and it's really fun. But I also am not somebody who does a lot of going out. So I don't
Right.
really.
And also you hate the taste of beer.
Right, that too. Okay, so anyway, he's going to be 21 later on this month. Donovan's parents are Bill and Stacey, and he has a sister named Olivia. And one of the things which probably most Blazer fans probably already know because it's comes out immediately when you start to learn things about Donovan Clingan is that one of the things that really has made him who he is today is the fact that his mother Stacey passed away when he was a child, when he was in 8th grade. He mentions it all the time. He mentions it, his family mentions it. She clearly was a huge influence in his life, and her passing obviously made a big difference to her. So we're going to go on a little journey and learn about Stacey Clingan because this is really fun to learn about this. She seems like an amazing person. So Stacey Clingan, what his mother was born on December 1st in 1975. She grew up in Bristol, as did Donovan. Bristol, Connecticut is also where Adrian Wojnarowski is from, and it's also, most people probably know, as the headquarters for ESPN. Bristol is an important part of Donovan's story. It is about 100 miles northeast of New York City, and it's about 60,000 people. So Stacey
That's
was
where
also,
ESPN is, right?
yes, yep. So Stacey was also born in Bristol, and she attended Central Bristol or Bristol Central High School, which is also where Donovan attended. She was a three-sport athlete. She did swimming and track and field and basketball. She earned a scholarship to the University of Maine to play basketball. While she was in high school, she set a school record for most rebounds in a game for both men's or women's team. And she also had a citywide record for most rebounds for on the girls' team.
Was she tall?
Yes, she was tall. She was 6'4".
Oh my God. For a
Yes.
woman, that's huge.
Yeah, she was 6'4". Bill was 6'6", or is 6'6". And Donovan, when he was born, was 11 pounds, 14 ounces, and he was at least 25 inches long because the table that they measured him on was 24 inches, and they knew he was about an inch longer at least.
So they couldn't even fit him on the table.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
yes, yeah. So, yes, she was very tall. Um, So her senior year at Bristol Central, she averaged 17 points, 21 rebounds, and 6 blocks. So
Jeez.
she was pretty dominant there.
Yeah.
So she, like I said, she attended the University of Maine. While she was there, they made it to the NCAA tournament 3 times. Her junior year, she made the second team all conference. Her senior year, she made the first team. She was also a co-captain her senior year. She was clearly really well loved on the team. And for 2 seasons, she played with Kelly Flagg, Cooper Flagg's mom. They were teammates there for a couple of years. She wore number 32, and so Donovan also wore 32. And in high school, um, Cooper Flagg also wore 32. Cooper Flagg wore 32 in high school because when his mother was in high school, she wore 32. She couldn't wear it in college because that's what Donovan Clingan's mom was wearing. But after Cooper Flagg learned about his mom's teammate, Stacey, he said he actually has said in interviews that he started wearing it because his mom wore it in high school, but then he kept wearing it because in high school in honor of his friend's mom. So started with his own mom, but he said he felt special being able
Hmm.
to wear it for his friend's mom, which I thought was really sweet.
That is
Okay,
sweet.
so um Stacey, yes, was she played for 4 years, and then after she graduated, she got married to Bill and became a first grade teacher. And I love the image of this 6'4" woman teaching first graders. And it's kind of interesting because a couple of things that crossed my mind were the fact that okay, she's 6'4" and she teaches, first graders. And
Hmm.
so she was probably really well known at the school for, being just so, she was like a giant of a person
Right.
in her personality as well. And just like she taught for 19 years. So lots of people came through her classroom. And even
Hmm.
if you weren't a student in her classroom, you probably knew her at school because she probably really had a presence that everybody knew Mrs. Clingan because she was just so tall. It would probably be, and so as he was growing up, Donovan Clingan was also people knew a lot of people knew him because they knew his mother, and the
Hmm.
whole family just like stood out like in town.
Because they're all
Everybody knew
huge.
it was the Klingons. Yeah, yeah. So something that has kind of a recurring theme is that he's always like been super noticeable, as is probably true of so many of these really tall guys. But it wasn't just him; it was like his mom. Um,
Is his sister tall?
I don't know how tall she is. She was a
Hmm.
volleyball player. I'm guessing that she was tall. I mean, if your parents are 6'6" and 6'4", I'm pretty sure
Pretty good chance you're tall. And also, if you're a
chance.
volleyball player, like height, obviously.
Yeah, yeah. So Stacey was first diagnosed with breast cancer in 2010. She fought it, had it off and on, but she was into remission, came back, um, and eventually she ended up dying in 2018. Before she died in 2016, she was inducted into the Bristol Sports Hall of Fame, and you can find her acceptance speech. And when she gives this speech, it's just like you can just tell that she was just like a warm, charming, pillar of the community. Everybody knew her, everybody loved her. She, was active in the church. She went to all of her kids' games, and you could just tell that uh in her short speech that she was funny and entertaining. And it's just like, I don't know, this whole time I was doing the research, especially about his mom, I was crying because it was just like, so hard. It's hard to
Mm,
imagine. We talked about, I think it was Matisse, whose mom died when he was in
yeah.
college, right?
I think
Was
he
it
was
college?
18. I think he was 18 when his mom died.
Yeah, and like when
Um,
you're going through the process of like becoming an NBA player and like all the pressure that's on you, and then to lose your mom, it just heartbreaking.
I think we have a couple other, like, so I think, um, Ryan Repair lost his father.
Mhm.
And I think there might be one other person who has lost a parent on this team.
Yeah,
I can't think now. But yeah, that's I mean, also like these guys are all so young to have lost a parent
yeah,
already. Like
yeah.
I'm 41 and I still have both my parents. Like
Mhm.
I just can't imagine what it would be like when you're that young to lose a parent.
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine it now. I mean, I lost my dad, but I haven't lost my mom. So my mom just turned 90. So so I'm just like, thinking about this. Well, my mom just turned 90, and I'm thinking about, moms who didn't make it that long, and how lucky I have been to have my mom and to still have my mom. And Yeah, there's a lot all caught up in it. But so when Stacey died, uh about 1,200 people attended her memorial.
Hmm.
And that's of a city of 60,000. That's like 2% of the population. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
lot. She had a very, very big impact on that city.
I
Um,
think teachers a lot so my mom was a teacher like but teachers they see a lot of kids and like if you especially if you're an elementary school teacher you see a lot of people in their like most formative years that like
mhm,
I mean I don't know about you but like I remember every single one of my elementary school teachers and if I
mhm.
saw them on the street I would probably still recognize them
Yeah.
like they're just like they're like I don't know they're not like parents but they're not like parents.
Yeah. Shout out to Mrs. Manning. She was my first grade teacher.
Nina Not my first grade teacher.
Ooh, that's a good name.
Hmm. I don't know
Uh,
if that's still her name. I think she got married, but that was her name when she was my teacher.
she was also inducted into the University of Maine Hall of Fame in 2003 and the Connecticut Women's Sports Hall of Fame in 2024.
Very
So
good.
anyway, that's a little bit about his mom, and I just thought she was so cool. So after he died, he had dabbled in basketball, and that had been, a thing that he enjoyed doing, but he threw himself into it. So it was the spring of his eighth grade year, and he just pretty much right away was in the gym all the time. For him, it was, I imagine a way to just like cope with loss. And
Hmm.
also, he talked a lot about how it was a way for him to honor his mom, and he just wanted to honor her because that was her thing. She loved it for him. She loved how well he played it, and so he wants to honor her. So when he starts high school, he's 6'8", still has baby fat. He kind of like in my mind, I get the picture of how people used to talk about Kevin Love. Still developing his body, didn't really know what he was, doing, but at 6'8" as a freshman, he came on, and very soon, because all of a sudden he was dedicating all of this time to basketball. After he died, or after his mom died, of course his dad was there. His grandmother also became super active in his life, but the coaches and the principal of the school also really took him under their wing so that he could show up and practice early. He worked as a landscaper in the summertime, and you talked about it early when we first got him. Worked as a snow, shoveling
Shoveler.
snow.
Yeah.
Um, and those were for, I think, for coaches or one of the maybe the vice principals of the school. They, gave him something to do. Um, so by the time he was like a sophomore or a junior, other schools, people were asking like, why aren't you going to, he was one of the best players in the state. Why don't you go to Mount Verde? Why aren't you going to Oak Hills? And they were calling him, and they were interested in him coming, and he wanted to stay local. He wanted to stay in Bristol. He wanted to stay so that he could beat his mom's rebounding record, which he eventually did. And he was like, I live a half a mile away. Like, I don't, why would I move to
Mm.
do this? Which is one of the things that kind of struck me as I was learning more about him, his loyalty and his identity with Connecticut and with Bristol especially, and how far away he is right now from that community that he grew up in and that so took care of him
Mm.
for such a long time. But anyway, so he ended up staying there. He was Gatorade, basketball player of the year, or boys basketball player of the year, whatever, for 2 years, his junior and his senior year. He did have a, like, let's say, regular recruitment for college, and it came down to Syracuse, Michigan. He grew up a Michigan fan. He really liked Michigan. So it was Syracuse, Michigan, Ohio State, and UConn. He ended up choosing UConn, which is practically in his backyard. It's like
Yeah.
45 minutes away.
I
And
mean, Connecticut's teeny
yeah,
tiny.
I know.
Everything
We
is
can't,
close.
I know. I can't even like handle like how many states can fit in into one small area. Um, so, but he talks about the coaches were the ones that put him over the top, and that uh Dan Hurley, called him at midnight the first night that he was allowed and said, I want you to come here. Now I'm going to bed.
That's
But he
very
said that
funny.
the way that the coaches wanted him, and I for the 2 years that he played with Hurley, and knowing like what kind of a coach Hurley is, and also hearing the stories about like his focus and dedication to basketball after his mom died, I feel like he responds well to that really, really tough coaching,
Mm,
which is kind of a different situation than he has right now, as far as I can tell. But
yeah.
that was just something that I noted. Um, so like I said, he chose UConn. He's had his girlfriend Maddie. They've been together since he was like 15. They've been together a really long time.
Yeah, I looked at his like Instagram and it was clear they've been like they're like
Yeah,
childhood sweethearts type.
yeah, yeah. And so she was also there, and I think she is still there finishing. Um, of course, he won 2 national championships. He wasn't sure what he was going to do at the end of the first year because he was the backup. And
Hmm.
he felt like he wanted to come back and have a whole scene where he wasn't the backup center. So we saw how that turned out. They won a second national championship. And then after that, he declared for the draft.
That's
So,
like Zach Collins was the backup when we drafted him, right?
mhm.
He wasn't he the backup in Gonzaga?
Yeah. And I don't think he ever had the major role.
Mm-mm. No, he never did. So it's interesting how many backups, centers
Hmm.
can come out in the draft. Like, I mean, obviously, like Klingan didn't, but he could have.
Hmm. Yeah.
And he, I'm sure he would have been drafted, but
Yeah. He totally could have. So one of the rabbit holes that I fell down with Donovan Clingan is that he's really, unless correct me if I'm wrong, kind of the first and only player the Blazers have um, within the NIL world, right? Because NILs are new.
yeah,
Scoot didn't do it. Shaedon didn't do it. Tumani didn't do it. And I'm going through all the guys who recently came in.
yeah.
It was too new. They didn't participate in it.
Right. We have a lot of guys that didn't even go to college.
Right,
So
exactly.
like who would like why would they sign you?
Yeah, yeah. So this was my first I hadn't really thought about it, but this was like my first opportunity to learn about kind of NIL.
Hmm.
Um, so, there's a lot of rules. But basically, to oversimplify it, a player can get compensation for showing up at an event, shaking hands, providing autographs, making social media posts. They can't take the money directly from the school. They can take it from businesses, or sometimes there's like collectives that are a group of often boosters with
Yeah,
businesses.
that's right.
um so Donovan Clingan did really well NIL wise, uh but I feel like we're in this kind of precious fleeting time where NIL, with him anyway, was so new and he was so unpolished that his NIL like videos and stuff that he made, like ads and stuff, they're adorable because they're so unpolished and so unnatural to him. I mean, we all fell in love with Jared McCain. He is a social media star and he's always been great at that and a fantastic basketball player as well. But I think he is the exception. And I think
Hmm.
the vast majority are guys like Donovan Clingan, who was like, here's an offer from Kim Kardashian to do Skims. And so Kim Kardashian had like there were like 16 different athletes of
Yeah,
all different sports, men, women, who got an NIL deal to wear Skims.
that's right.
There's the local car dealer, where he's like the only thing he's like, we're not gonna block your financing. And, and my absolute favorite one was after they won, I can't remember if it was the first or second national championship, but he went to Cane's, like the fried chicken place with Stefan Castle, and they worked, behind the counter. And they have it's on TikTok, and of course now today we can't look at TikTok right this minute.
But like
Um,
tomorrow we're probably going to be able
right,
to look at TikTok.
exactly. but so I'm doing it from memory from what I saw on TikTok back when that was a thing. But he's like, oh, answering the drive-through, and he's like, "Kling Kong here. The only thing we're blocking here is your hunger. What can I get for you today?"
No.
And
I
he,
do can I say I do think you're right about this being the golden age of NIL because like so like eventually once the world gets a hold of something like this, they figure out like they institutionalize a playbook that every athlete will follow from there on out. But there wasn't one at the very beginning, and they were just trying stuff,
yeah,
right? And now like we're seeing like Juju Watkins and like, like State Farm commercials and you know what, like the playbook is already developing right in front of our eyes, right? But it's like when he started, it was like it wasn't there yet, and people were just trying stuff.
yep, yeah. And the players for the mo for from what I've seen were just like he was in the gym his whole life. He was not practicing like, polished delivery of this new kind of Ritz cracker flavor. They're like, try
Right.
these Ritz crackers and tell us if you like the flavor. So yeah, I just was struck that like just like you said, it's like we're in this like little tiny bubble of fun period before it like explodes and it gets taken over by the institution, and it's not gonna be fun. So I would highly recommend going and trying to watch some of Donovan Clingan's ads that he did, because they're really funny. So he did there was a article that was written that was posted in like November of 23 on this site called, I think it's called On3, and they like seem to be tracking NIL deals for different players. I think it's supposed to be like a service for schools and players, so they can like kind of keep track of their deals and stuff. But they wrote like a blog post about like the top 10 earners in men's basketball, and he was one of the top 10,
Mm,
which makes sense because his program was huge.
right.
Um,
UConn, like they were like the reigning like NCAA champs for
yeah,
two years. Like,
yeah, yeah. He had Duncan, yeah, lots and lots of
oh,
them.
Duncan, that makes perfect sense too.
Oh, I hadn't even thought about the Duncan, but like the dunking.
Yeah.
Duh.
Yeah.
I was just thinking because everybody back east likes Duncan.
No, I just meant
Um,
like because of like literally the words.
yeah. He had a special if you ordered Chipotle online, they had the Donovan Clingan bowl.
It was like
Which you
his
can,
favorite bowl.
yeah.
That's hilarious. I
Yeah.
wonder if he got one of those lifetime Chipotle cards.
Oh, I don't know.
Because I remember Josh Hart getting one. I don't remember if he was when he was here, but like, a lot of times if you are famous enough,
Yeah.
Chipotle will give you one of those like lifetime cards.
Yeah.
You can always get Chipotle for free.
Yeah, maybe he did. That would be amazing. Well, so hobbies, he's a big fisherman. And I was talking about how like even when he was growing up, like he was super like people saw him and noted him, and he was really well known. Ever since high school, it's been hard for him to blend into the background and just like have like a normal life where people, and then especially got even, more pronounced when he was in college. So fishing for him is a nice way to just get out and get away. And he has a kayak, and so he likes to go out. And he said he was even in a kayak one morning at like 7 o'clock in the morning, and like you couldn't even see how tall he was, but people were like on the bank yelling like "Go Yukon!" And he was like, "I don't even know how they know who I am." Um, but
That's
he
so
does
funny.
enjoy fishing.
I can't imagine a kayak big enough to fit him.
I know. Can you imagine how big the kayak must have to be?
Because like you put your legs in there.
Yeah, get in and out. Yeah, but
No.
and so
I
yeah, I
hear
mean that's he had a childhood dog growing up, Reese. Reese was a great comfort to him when his mother died.
what
And
kind of
then
dog?
Reese actually they lost him when he was a sophomore, I think, in college. And so he like left for the weekend to go say goodbye to Reese. But yeah, I guess so like my big takeaways from them from learning more about Donovan Clingan was just how important his tight-knit community was to him and how far away he is from that now. Um I don't know if it's hard for him or not. Maybe it was perfect timing. Maybe he needed to be in that tight knit community back then, and now he's ready to spread his wings and fly on his own. But I gotta think that that's got to be hard. And then just like, yeah, just like the moment that we're in right now with NIL and how I'm gonna hang on to it because it's not gonna last very long.
Uh, one, what kind of dog was Reese?
Rottweiler. I believe he was a
Rottweiler.
Rottweiler. I think.
Okay.
I think.
Two, I'm curious if in any of your research you came across like particularly in his time in Yukon, like if like for some reason he had like more of a because of his connection to the Connecticut, like he was more like if he like was really popular or something. I don't know exactly what I'm trying to ask exactly, but like I think about how like it was a really big deal when Justin Herbert was the quarterback at the
Yeah.
University of Oregon because he was from Eugene. And like it actually is very rare for people from Eugene to end up on the Oregon football team because they're one of those teams that like, you know, recruits nationally because they're good enough to do that and they have like such a, you know, like a highly regarded program in college football. UConn is the same way, and it's such a small state. It's so rare for people from actual Connecticut to end up on their team. And I'm curious if that like showed up anywhere.
Absolutely. It was all over. It was
Yeah.
all over the place. They were very excited that he stayed in Connecticut, that he didn't choose another, like remember how mad everybody was when Kevin Love chose to go to Southern California.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
so yeah, people were very excited when he stayed, and they covered him very closely. Um, and he was tons and tons of articles. There was a really great article that I will post to that was a very long form article. I think it's the Connecticut Times. But I had to pay 99 cents for 6 months for a subscription because there were so many articles about Donovan Clingan in that magazine. And right before the draft, Woj did a whole piece on him and went back to Bristol because he went to the same high school as Woj. Um,
Mm,
and so yeah, he went back and did a thing about like him being like kind of like the pride of Bristol. Um, and I mean, there's the whole ESPN connection too, which like they
yeah,
didn't really, go into it, but like obviously there must have been, ESPN people crawling all over the the place that you would probably run into and see. So yeah,
totally. Yeah. I always really like it when people are able to like for that to be the right step for them to stay with and represent the community that they grew up in. That said, I will also say it makes perfect sense to me that some people are ready to leave that community at some point because there can be a little more pressure, you know, to play for like the city or the state that you're from and
yeah,
you know, but it's nice when those fans get that connection to that person because they're like that's not just Donovan Clingan, that's Donovan like, you know, little Donovan who I saw grow up,
yeah,
you know, and I remember when he I don't know, crashed his
yeah,
bike and skinned his knee or something. You know, it's nice to have those folks.
yeah. And especially because like the whole community knew his mom, rallied around him. I mean, I'm sure, he was known throughout the state by the time he got to UConn, but especially he's always going to be like a son of Bristol.
Hmm. So Donovan, let me ask, so Donovan wears 23, right?
Right, because he can't wear 32 on the Blazers.
Because he can't wear 32 on the Blazers. And
Yeah.
I was wondering if that was why. It's because he just
Yeah.
reversed the numbers.
Yeah. They got to unretire some of these numbers.
I mean, it's an untenable trend that you have. If you want to keep honoring players and retiring them, like if you take a lot of good numbers out of circulation.
Yeah. Yeah. So and he was able to wear 32 in college. He just can't wear it here. So that's why he wears 23 because it's the reverse of 32.
Gosh, what is Cooper Flagg gonna wear when he gets here?
I don't know. They're going to have to do something else.
Yeah, like how is he gonna honor his mother and his mother's friend
Yeah.
and
Cooper Flagg took a visit to UConn and Donovan hosted him.
yeah, that makes perfect sense. That's
Yeah. And they
cute.
have they did a jersey swap. Um
When they
with
played each other.
yeah, yeah.
Cute.
No, they didn't play each other. It was a jersey swap of like their mother's jerseys,
Oh,
I think. Yeah.
okay. So I guess you could never play. Okay, I guess that makes sense that they wouldn't play each other unless they played in a tournament.
Yeah. Yeah. And he was also like Donovan also had offers to play on like more powerful AAU teams, and he stayed with
Mm.
the local ones because of the connections.
That has like big Damian Lillard vibes right there.
Yes,
What you're
he did
talking
have
about.
he did have some of those loyalty vibes. And also, and maybe Damien also had this, but just like he's teamed in his interviews and stuff to really have a like wanting to be where people understood him
Mm.
and understood like his need to get away and his quirkiness. In this article that I'm going to share, this long form one, it's really great. It starts off with him in Los Angeles driving a Rolls Royce around town because Jojo Siwa's dad was part of this collective, and he was going to get an Uber, but Jojo Siwa's dad like tossed him the keys to his Rolls and was like, "Hey, take this." So it was to talk about just like how vastly different like his life goes from like little town Connecticut to like the big thing once you're the big thing. But also in this article it talked about how he has ADHD and how he's always early, he's always like moving, he's constantly going from one thing to another, his brain just like doesn't stop. And like that's another thing that he said that he really likes for fishing, is it just helps him like calm down and be peaceful. But like people are just used to like he's always moving, he's always bouncing a ball. He's always asking, what are we going to do next? When are we going to go? When are we going to get there? And so
Mm.
I don't know who he lives with in Portland. That's something I'd be really curious, because his sister is now in college as well. She goes to Clemson.
Hmm.
Um, and like so I don't know if his dad came
What
out
does
here
his
with
dad
him.
do?
He worked for, I think, the local utility. Um,
Okay.
that's what the job title sounded like. An interesting thing was that when his mom obviously was sick for a long time, and they took out an additional life insurance policy because it was really important for her that they be able to pay off the house and have college paid for the kids. So so when he was younger, that makes me think that they weren't ever thinking like, oh, Donovan's going to like be an NBA player and it's all going to be, great. She was like thinking like, we need to make sure. So of course he didn't need his college money, so he gave it all to his sister. So she was able to use all of it.
That's sweet. Yeah, and like I mean he got NIL deals.
Yeah.
Made a little bit of extra money on the side.
The only thing we're blocking is your hunger. That could be our new, let's get into the sauce.
Let's get into the sauce because we're blocking your hunger.
I
Yeah,
don't know. Oh yeah, like we could tie those together.
that's
But it was
funny.
really interesting. Yeah, his loyalty is something that we're sort of familiar with. Um
Hmm.
and so I'm excited for him. I'm just excited to see what he's gonna do. I think these injuries have sort of slowed him down a little bit. Um and also having like a million centers on the roster, maybe that hasn't really helped either. So hopefully once the second half of the season, we're last night's game was number 41. So
We're
we're at the
halfway
halfway
there.
point on our journey.
It's interesting. So you mentioned he's ADHD, and I bet you that really. So I'll say my husband is. I don't. He hasn't been diagnosed, but I think he's ADHD, and he thinks he's ADHD. Like it makes sense that he could throw himself into basketball because there's this like kind of element of ADHD where you can really like obsess over something and like make that like your whole focus. Um, and so like it might come really naturally for him to like just put all of his energy and all of his focus into getting better at basketball. And I don't want to say that that's necessarily therapeutic, but like I think there's something really satisfying for that. Just like when I look at the way my husband interacts with certain things, like he gets a lot of personal satisfaction by improving in this thing that he obsesses over.
Mhm.
And so like that it can be one of those things where like the sacrifice and the reward um are like a nice balance.
Mhm.
Um And so like I don't know. I'm really glad that basketball worked out for him that way.
Yeah, yeah, and he's very consistent in talking about it as, him wanting to honor his mother's legacy
Hmm.
um through all of it.
Yeah, that's really amazing. It's also interesting. Did his dad play basketball?
Then I don't know. I feel like one of the articles I read might have talked about a very brief and non memorable stint in basketball. There was
Hmm.
a funny story in one of the things that I wrote about how they meet how his parents met, and it was basically because they were like in a bar and one guy like saw her and how tall she was and he was like, you guys need to meet.
Just because they're both giant.
Yeah. I just love the image of this 6'4" woman teaching first graders so much.
That's amazing. Yeah, the reason why I asked is because I was thinking about when we did Mason Plumlee. I don't know if Mason Plum, both of Mason Plumlee's parents played basketball, and it's really hard to be 6'6" and have nobody try to put a basketball in your hands. I was just
Mhm.
gonna say, like, it would be very surprising to me
Yeah,
if he never played basketball. But Mason Plumlee's parents were both like college basketball players that gave birth to a bunch of basketball players. Like,
a bunch.
yeah, some that I feel like are made up, and then I find out that they're real.
Yeah, and Mason Plumlee now starting for the net for Phoenix for the Suns.
Oh my God, time is a flat circle because I like look at how many centers Portland and Phoenix specifically have shared.
Yeah.
They both had Rolo. They both had Mason Plumlee. They both had Nurkic. They both had Aiton.
Drew
Like
Eubanks.
they both had Drew Eubanks. Like we have shared a lot of centers with Phoenix. And I'll say like it's hard to what end?
I know. And
But
guess
yeah,
it's already worked out for
Mason I
anybody.
think is starting. Nurk is I think on the trade block,
He's getting
unfortunately.
DNPs.
Yeah, well, so first I wasn't sure if it was gonna be like if it was gonna be real because he got that suspension. He had to serve that suspension for that fight he got into.
Hmm.
And then Mason was starting then, and then he came back and then he had a DNP. And I didn't think a whole lot of it in that first game because sometimes like after you've taken like 5 games off or whatever, like maybe you don't play or you play like sparing minutes or whatever, but then he just never they never put him back in. And I think he played like a bench role for like a game or two, and then Bud just
I was like, nope.
no.
It's so sad.
I know. I think that Nurk can, for us, was a really fun and talented
Yeah.
player when he was in his groove. And I think that the coaching staff at the time knew how to, and also his teammates knew how to get the best out of him.
Yep.
But I realized that he is not what my husband and I would call a universal blood donor. He is not somebody who can just thrive in any
Right.
situation, anywhere. He's somebody who needs like kind of some specific, a specific culture, a specific environment, a specific way of being coached for you to get the most out of him and
Yeah,
for
and a
him to like
specific
grow.
role.
Yes, yes, he needs it to be defined for him, and
Mhm.
you can't just put him on any team and be like,
Yeah.
do the thing.
And same with Aiden.
Yeah, I think they're both like a little bit like unique flowers in that way. And you either have to put in the time to get the most out of those players or you don't, and they feel like you didn't get what you wanted.
Hmm. Yeah. And I think that the former Blazers team was willing to take on putting in the work that you needed to, both the players and the coaches. And
Hmm.
I don't think we're in that right now.
Yeah. It's too bad though, because I wonder like if so there I think that there are some players that are like that, where they like thrive and like special circumstances and are not people that just translate to other contexts. And it makes me wonder if how many players miss out on a career entirely because they don't start in a place that's the right fit for them.
Yeah.
It's so easy to wash out of the NBA just because you are a special snowflake and you weren't in the right environment for you to thrive.
Yeah. And somebody else needed your skills, but not the team
Yes.
that picked you.
Right. There might not even have been a pathway for you to get to that team, even if they wanted you.
Hmm.
Like, you know what I mean? Because like you get drafted someplace and like you get drafted someplace that like nobody wants to trade with or whatever. Like it's really easy to end up not in the NBA.
Like there's one team that GP2 belongs on.
That's right.
There's one team.
There's one team. That's right. And for some reason, it he found he's I guess he's lucky he found his way back there.
Yeah.
But they had to pay a lot of money for like a product that nobody else really wanted or needed.
Yeah. Sorry to bring him up.
It's fine. Gosh, someday we can stop talking about him. Like, look at we can now talk. We've been talking about him, and Raymond Felton's name hasn't escaped our lips for some time now.
When I was in New York, Raymond Felton was at the game. And he was presenting some kind of an award. And I just saw Raymond Felton and I just like saw red. And I was just like, I couldn't handle. I was just like, no, I can't. And then I stopped and like he was giving the award to somebody in like the LGBTQ community who had done like something absolutely amazing. And just that alone made me go like, well, isn't that nice that he's an ambassador for the team and he can participate in nice things like this? So I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe my Raymond Felton feelings have dissipated and they've definitely gotten more mild, especially after I saw him being like, a community ambassador like that when I was in New York.
Yeah, I mean, one team's pariah is another team's ambassador. And, as an NBA player, you only really need one franchise to
Mhm.
love you for you to have a role like that. And for him, it's just not us.
Yeah.
That's fine. Does anybody love Rolo the way we love Rolo? I don't know. Like, you just need one franchise to just love you, and the other ones can hate your guts, and it's fine. Maybe it's better for you if they hate your guts, quite frankly, because at least you're remembered.
Yeah. That's so
Because
true.
everybody like knows Raven Felton goes, oh, his name comes up, boo, Instead of being like, I don't know, name some guy that was on our team, and people are like, who?
And we're like, we love him. He's a Blazer cutie. Scout the VCA. What are you kidding me?
We need to do an episode that's just Blazer Cuties, like a Hall of Fame Blazer Cuties
Yeah, or just to
episode.
catch up on some of the Blazer cuties.
Yeah, Scala BCR still kicking around,
What
doing
they're
his
doing.
thing.
Yeah.
One big Haitian, wasn't that his handle?
Oh, I think it was.
His handle was one big Haitian.
Oh, Scal. So anyway, that's what I learned about Donovan Clingan, and it was great. It was really fun. And one thing that we need to talk about, we haven't done Scoot, and we on purpose didn't do Scoot last year just because he was the focus of like everything, and it was like, what are we even going to find to talk
Hmm.
about Scoot? So like people who've been following us for a couple of years might have noticed that we have not done Scoot yet. We did the same thing like with Damian Lillard. Like we didn't do Damian Lillard until he was many years into his career. So I don't think we're probably going to wait that long on Scoot. But like, what do you think about? Do you think we should do Scoot sometime soon, or do you think we should hold off a little bit?
I don't know. I feel like we should do Scoot this year just because this feels like an important year for him on our team. Um, and I will say, like, I don't when we didn't when you don't do Damian Lillard, I think that there was like, we also knew that he was really like highly successful here early. We knew he would be on this team for a long time. There's so much volatility on a team that's not good, that's as
Uh-huh.
not good as we are. I just don't know. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? Like you just never know. And I like to think that Scoot will be here a long time, but I just don't know because
Yeah.
who knows? Who knows who our next coach is going to be? Who knows what they're going to want for like their team? Who knows who knows how long our GM is going to be in his job?
Yeah.
Like you just never know. So in that way, I think that it's good for us to do him this year, especially as we've seen him like more of who he is as a basketball player for the
Yeah.
Blazers.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, let's do Scoot.
Now I'm worried that we should do him before the trade deadline.
No, I don't think he's going anywhere. I don't think
No.
I think that fans would riot
Right.
if we traded our number 3 pick from last
Yeah.
season this year.
And
That would
just as he's
be
starting to come into his own too.
no, that would be some like I mean
Painful stuff.
also like can you imagine like people don't know how they feel about this GM anyway. that this is what the GM does. He like backtracks out of the thing. Like we tanked a whole season to draft him. This is
Yeah.
the one thing that I'm like, I always think about. I'm like, when we aren't playing Donovan Clingan, when we're not playing Scoot, I'm like, we lost. You know how many games we watched our team lose just for the privilege of getting this guy on our team, and then we're not going to see him play?
Yeah.
For what?
Mhm. Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't think he's going anywhere this year, but I just never know for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, sounds good.
Um, yeah, thank you for telling me about Donovan. There's a ton of stuff there I didn't know. Um, my dad a long time, well, he's a UConn alumni and will tell me a lot about UConn players, but a lot of it's wrong because my dad is about vibes. He's not about like reality. And I don't mean that to say he's a liar, but just like he tells me stuff that feels true, and then I have to like figure out where like his feelings meet reality. So now I have some anchors from like Tara, who did the research on Donovan Clingan, and now I know all about Donovan Clingan's mother, Stacey. Wonderful. Um, Before we get out of here, I would like to know, Tara, it is Sunday, January 19th, 2025. What is your take?
Okay. I've been thinking about this. I don't want to go on too long about it, so I just want to tell you that it's something that is on my radar. On Instagram, don't ask me why I'm spending time on Instagram. I know I should not be on Instagram, but for some reason, I'm getting a lot of posts about toxic positivity. And I don't know if it's Instagram telling me I'm toxically positive or what, but it's got me thinking about our my attitude about the team. And I don't think that I am like being fake positive about this team, but I just want people to know that I'm keeping an eye on it. That like I feel like I have a good handle on where we're going, and that like the reason we're rebranding tanking to lottery bound is not to like be fake and lie about the situation that the Blazers are in, but it's more trying to reframe it as something that's not just like you're tanking and you're exploding and that's it, but we are on a journey. We all know that we're on a journey and it could be a long journey. So I guess my take is that I'm going to be aware of like toxic positivity and try not to be unrealistic about where the Blazers are. And I don't think I have been, but if maybe I have been, I'm going to try to just pay attention to that and make sure that I am continuing to be realistic. Um, because otherwise I don't know why Instagram is like throwing all these things in my feed.
Well, Instagram clearly didn't hear us talking about Norman Powell on Thursday night because that was not toxic positivity. I'll tell you that much. I'll say I appreciate that you are really a positive person, like in your heart. The one of the things that I will say about for me, the difference between like toxic positivity and positivity is like, is there a kernel of truth? Like are you choosing to put like the best possible outlook forward that is still rooted in something that feels true to you, or whether it is just a straight out lie? Is the difference between being gaslit and then also being asked to like remember the things about this thing that are also good, even if the overwhelming feelings that a lot of people feel are bad. And I do think that like you try to like root all of your positivity in things that are real. I don't think you're lying about it, and I don't think you're trying to gaslight anybody into thinking that their feelings about something are wrong. And so in that way, like I never have once wondered if you were toxically positive.
Okay, phew, thank you.
Now, if you start lying to me and start telling me that something is really awesome when I know that you know that it's not, like maybe we can have a discussion about toxic positivity. But I do think that like you try your very best to root it all in a truth.
Well, I'm saying, I love Shaedon, but not because I necessarily think that he's a superstar, but I find his game very aesthetically pleasing. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
yeah, that's great. And
So how
like,
about you, Rose? What's your take?
okay, so here's my take. I have spent the last couple of days watching Unrivaled, as I'm sure many basketball fans have.
I can't get it. I gotta
Oh
figure out
my
how to
God.
get it because I've like watched all the build up to it and it seems so exciting to have this new league that seems so well thought out and so interesting.
It is like it like to me. So I kind of wondered, I was like, how would I like 3v3?
For people who might not know what Unrivaled is, can you
Yeah.
explain it just a little bit?
Yes, I'm sorry. Unrivaled is a women's basketball league that was started by, I think, Nafisa Collier, Brianna Stewart, and a couple other players who were early like investors. Some other folks that are big names are also investors. I think Alex Morgan, the retired MLS player, or not MLS, excuse me, National Women's Soccer,
NWSL.
NWSL. I was like, I can't think of the acronym now. And then I think Steve Nash might be an investor. Like a lot of people have invested in this league. It is a 3v3 women's league. I believe that the players are all by invited to join. There's a lot of WNBA stars. I think it's all WNBA players. Um, and the idea is that a lot of women, unlike the men's side, go overseas during the off season of the WNBA because one, their season is short, and two, they need to make more money because we know that like WNBA contracts are nothing compared to what you see like like NBA players make. Um, and so in order to like support their families, a lot of them go overseas to like supplement their income from WNBA. Uh, so this is a 3v3 league. It is not, the teams are not city like associated. They are clubs. And what happened was women signed their contracts to join the Unrivaled League, and then they held like a club draft where the players were drafted to different teams. So I believe there are 6 teams, and they will play each other for like 3 months, and then there'll be playoffs and yada yada yada. And it's really fun because it's like some of the most exciting WNBA players playing 3v3. And I'll say, like, I wasn't sure how I would feel about it because I watched 3v3 during the Olympics and it was just kind of like meh. It was to me, it didn't like hit some of the excitement that like I get when I watch 5v5 basketball. 3v3 in Unrivaled has some very interesting changes to it that make it really exciting. So you know how like during the All-Star game for a while they would do this thing where like they would choose like the winning score after the third quarter based on what the score looked like?
Yeah.
That's what they do in Unrivaled. At the end of
Okay.
the third quarter, they set the winning score. So
Hmm.
it does encourage some very interesting play styles. Once there's like they're not playing the clock, they just play for the like the to hit that overall score. Really
Is it
exciting
full
ends of
court
games.
3v3 or is it half court?
Full court, but the court is smaller.
Okay.
The court is shorter and it's a little bit more narrow, and the shot clock is shorter, and there an interesting innovation, which is this is the crux of my take. The interesting innovation in Unrivaled is that if you are fouled and you get to shoot free throws, you shoot one free throw
Mhm.
for the number of points
Yeah, I love that.
that you are supposed to be able to shoot. So you don't shoot like if you got fouled on a three, you shoot one free throw for 3 points.
Yep.
You don't shoot three free throws for 1 point each. If you shoot like an and one, you shoot one free throw for 1 point. That is an amazing innovation. The game goes so much faster. And I was like, why doesn't the NBA do that?
I wonder if they've tried it because I know I've heard of that before. And I don't know if they've tried it out in the G League or if some European leagues. I know I've heard of that before, but never in like a domestic league that I could watch. Yeah. Imagine how much faster the games would be, especially if you were playing against Giannis.
Oh my God, that's exactly what I thought about. I was
It'd be
like,
like 10 minutes shorter.
you need to bring this rule to the NBA and call it the Giannis rule.
Yeah.
Like you can shave time off of games. And it also, I will say, like, there's something really interesting about an all or nothing shot, right? It's not like you can just like sit there and be like, okay, one is practice, I'll split a pair, whatever. Like, no, all or nothing. You miss that free throw, it's like you didn't even earn it. And
Mhm.
it just makes for some interesting dynamics. And so that was what I was gonna say. One free throw for as many points as it's supposed to be worth is the way. I love it. The games are so much faster. It's very interesting. Yeah, I'm all about it. That's my favorite innovation that I've watched watching Unrivaled because it's like overstimulating in a good way because it gets you to the part of the game that's super duper fun. Shot clocks also force a lot of action. Switchability is really interesting because 3v3 it's not like it's not like zone. You never see zones, It's like everybody has to be good at being versatile. And sometimes you gotta, like, as a guard, you gotta guard the big.
And it moves even faster, I'm sure. I mean, I remember when I played soccer, 11v11 is like the regular. But then we would have 7-on-7 tournaments, and those were
Mm.
so fun. But the real sicko one was the 5-on-5 tournament. And you only played like 5-minute halves or 10-minute halves, but you were dying at the end of it because you were playing as fast and as hard as you could. So I would love to see like how that changes things in this. So it's on TNT, and then you were saying that it's on another channel that I'm going to see if I can get because I don't have
Yeah.
a cable or
It's on True
a streaming
TV.
package.
It's on True TV, which I think is still cable. I'm not
Okay.
sure um exactly if there's no way to get it for free.
Is it in the WNBA app
I don't
or
know.
on League WNBA League Pass? I'm gonna look that up because
I don't
I totally
know.
want to watch it.
It's the thing is it's player owned, and I so I don't know if like what the affiliation is with the WNBA other than the fact that they sourced all their talent from the WNBA. They're like I'll say the club names are fantastic. They're like the roses and the vinyl and the
Vinyl.
mist. They're like straight like half the clubs feel like they could be from the Pacific Northwest. The vinyl, the roses, the mist, those could all be from our area. I'll say they all feel like they're really awesome to me, except for like I'll say the lunar owls. I don't really understand what was wrong with the owls. Why did they have to be lunar? Are you saying they're nocturnal? Are you saying they're literally from the moon? I don't know. Um, but anyway, it's fantastic. I hope you check it out because it is super duper fun. I know you see Cassidy and I talking about it in our chat. Like it is wonderful, and also like I didn't really think I would appreciate this, but like some players are really, really talented playing 3v3 that I somehow overlook sometimes in the WNBA. Like
Mhm.
it's a slightly different skill set, and you really can appreciate the people who have figured out how to like transform their game into the 3v3 game. And some of the players, it's like very obvious to me that they've played a lot of 3v3. Like when I watched Dereka Hamby play, who won the bronze medal in Paris on the 3v3 team, I was like, you know how to play 3v3. But still, full court 3v3,
Yeah, it
it's a
seems,
joy.
and especially when you get like, I mean, think about how much fun it would be fun to watch 3v3 because NBA players are never going to go 1-on-1, right? They're just
No.
never going to do that because somebody's ego might get bruised. But think how much fun it would be to watch 3-on-3.
Yeah.
These women are leading the way. I think it's awesome. And I also love the fact that it's really a regular schedule. So they play Saturdays, Mondays, and Fridays.
Hmm.
So easy to keep track of.
It is, and it's great because it's like I was thinking about these players, so like they don't have to go overseas. A lot of these players cannot bring their families overseas with them. Like this really, and all the games are in Florida. So it's like they have the ability for them to like I don't know, like have their roots with them. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like when
Yeah.
you go overseas, it's like you're going on vacation for like a business trip for however long, and you leave your home and your family and all that other stuff behind. And I just really like the way that the women's side of the game have really found ways to incorporate families. And like when they did the bubble, they all brought their kids with them. Like it just feels like a far more holistic look at like how this game could be played,
Yeah.
in like with family centeredness.
That's awesome. I love it. Good job on the takes. As
Yeah.
always, it's been lovely chatting with you today. I think we probably wrap it up here because I who knows how long we've gone on, probably way more than we should have, but that's life. And thank you to everybody who hangs out all the way to the end. You're the best. Let's see. Let's just wrap it up. You can find us. Rose is Roselle Harding. I'm TCB Biggs. We're both on Blue Sky, pretty much primarily. That's the main place right now. And you can also find the We Have a Take podcast on Blue Sky. We'll see what social media does to us. I'm gonna have to quit Instagram soon anyway because I can't take any more toxic wondering if I'm toxically positive. But thank you to all of our listeners and go Blazers.